afternoon, participants, and thank you for taking time off your busy schedules and participating in this webinar on e-commerce fulfillment, the key enabler for multi-channel retailing. Just to give you a context as to why this is such an important topic of discussion, global business-to-consumer e-commerce sales has witnessed a sharp growth over the last few years. According to eMarketer, e-commerce sales will top $4 trillion in 2020, which is 14.6% of total retail sales of $27 trillion. Critical to enabling this growth is e-commerce fulfillment. As internet retailing grows, the needs and demands of multi-channel retailing continue to evolve. Clearly, there is a significant need for logistics in many emerging markets and for reliable service providers who can scale up to meet these burgeoning demands. In this webinar, the experts will discuss their views, industry experiences, and key strategies to help brands scale online across multiple platforms. The key points that we will cover in today's webinar include the growing demands of multi-channel retailing, opportunities and challenges of e-commerce fulfillment, strategies to explore multiple revenue streams, and success stories and use cases from around the world of brands successfully undertaking e-commerce fulfillment. And to deliberate on these issues, we have a galaxy of experts today. To start off with, let me introduce you to Mr. Venkat, Nott, who is the founder and CEO of Vinculum Solutions Limited. He is experienced in creating startups and building them into successful global companies. Venkat is passionate about creating high-power teams and SaaS-based path-breaking software products. He holds a degree in engineering from NIT Calicut and an MBA from IIM Bangalore. At Vinculum, he focuses on corporate strategy and global business development. So without any more ado, let me hand it over to Mr. Venkat Nott for further proceedings. Over to you, Venkat.
Thanks for the lovely introduction and giving us this opportunity for the webinar. I hope the audience will find the discussions useful. Let me quickly introduce the co-participants in the webinar. On my right is Mr. Alok Bansal from DTDC. Alok, you want to say a few words about your background? You set up the entire fulfillment for DTDC for the e-commerce operations.
Sure. So before telling about myself, I would like to tell you something more about company, because company phase is very important. So I belong to DTDC, which is a quite old company in logistics in India. We are 26 years old company, so we know each and every nerve of the entire logistics in India, how to maintain and manage city level, town level, and village levels. So we are covering right now 10,500 pin codes, which is a massive number of India posts. And now, being into domestic connections via air, surface, rail, and international connection, now we are bullish about cross-border, which is the main key which is coming up, and that is far more important. Because now the real need is to get domestic clients outside India and to get international clients inside India. Cross-border really holds quite importance. So we started this vertical of fulfillment in DTDC. We realized that now it's a time to manage complete fulfillment. Fulfillment means fulfilling order, whether it's you say item-wise, B2B, B2C, B2B2C, but you have to fulfill each and every order. So we have maintained around 7 huge fulfillment centers in India, like Amazon and Flipkart, and then we are managing 50+ odd warehouses across India. And what we are doing in a nutshell, we are doing complete order management, inventory management, packaging, and then courier management. So entire fulfillment.
Thanks, Alok. I'll then move to the next participant. Devendra, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself? Devendra is head of his VP operations for Voonik. Devendra? Sorry, there's a bit of echo.
Yeah, so
okay. Devendra, could you repeat?
Yeah, so I'll start with explaining about the company which I work with. So Voonik.com started in 2013 as a fashion marketplace, and we focused dedicatedly on personalization. We started with the vision that the fashion should not be limited to a restricted few members of the society. Fashion should be available for all. We are currently running 4 different portals for different segments as well as different set of ratings. Voonik.com, which dedicates to women in the country. Their fashion needs, the app helps personalize the needs. Voonik.com is to organize the fulfillment. Similarly, on the lines of then we have Bhakta as well as which works specifically years of parts of the country. We source different silk products, saris, and that can be given to people located in any part of the country. Now, this is in a nutshell about Voonik. So we source all the items located in various pockets, small pockets across the country, and giving it to the customers located across the country. Currently, we are serving 20,000 locations with 25,000 sellers on marketplace. So this is in a nutshell about Voonik.
Thanks, Devendra. Thanks, Devendra. We'll come back to you.
Sure.
Our last participant for the webinar is Mr. Atul Bhakta. Atul is the CEO founder of OneWorld, which is who are a leader in cross-border shipping, especially for brands selling into Europe. So I would let Atul speak a few words about OneWorld and himself.
Thank you. So OneWorld Express is an 18-year-old company, and we are predominantly focused on cross-border commerce. We have been working with Chinese sellers, and we've educated and helped them go cross-border. So we have been in the cross-border business since 2009 and have assisted and educated lots of these sellers. I think India is at a stage where we believe the cross-border piece would be very interesting. We come with a wealth of experience in this space and a tech platform which we are collaborating with Vinculum, which will allow us to enable cross-border commerce. So from our perspective, we are currently, in terms of volumes, doing something close to 70 to 80,000 parcels every single night from China to the rest of the world. So it's a global cross-border multi-channel offering that we bring, which is very much required when you're looking at cross-border commerce. So that's a short summary.
That's a fascinating number, and I guess that sets the context. Though we're going to talk about cross-border as a second step. That's why can't India do those volumes, right? So that's the opportunity. But we'll come back to that. Just a quick intro about myself, and I think I'm the CEO founder for Vinculum, and the Vinculum is a cloud-based software company with ready integrations to marketplaces globally and logistics companies globally. So what we are really trying to facilitate is to help sellers, help brands to sell globally. We are already helping brands in multiple countries, really. So when I'm talking of marketplaces, we're integrated to marketplaces in South Africa, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and US, literally global. So the opportunity that which we are trying to enable is to help brands to sell domestically and internationally in each of these countries. So I'll come up, and that's without doing too much of an introduction beyond that. Let's jump into the opportunity directly. So let's look at the first thing in terms of domestically opportunities for brands and sellers to grow, right? So I'll just set the context, and then we'll jump into each of the eminent panelists that we have in today's webinar. So when we look at the kind of e-commerce sales projected worldwide, like in the introduction set up to the webinar, we're looking at a $4 trillion plus revenue number in terms of dollars by 2020, which is just 4 years away. And we are talking of 15% plus of the retail sales coming in from e-commerce sales. So today, there is an opportunity for brands to be able to sell on, if I look at all the brands and sellers in India, they're already selling on many marketplaces. And the bigger global brands are also using the opportunity to change the business models of trying to set up offices, working with distributors and stockists, and selling into the target customer base in each geographies. They have a fascinating opportunity to inexpensively try the online channels by collaborating with marketplaces. So that's one of the things which we are already seeing, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. I would say most of the global brands still don't use the online channels very well. And there is so much of opportunity there. And it's very interesting as we see what's going on in the Indian market too. Previously, we used to say SMEs and sellers in US are big and in India are much smaller. But today we service customers who are $100 million or 500 plus crores in turnover in less than 4 years. And they are sellers on Amazon, sellers on marketplaces like Flipkart and Paytm, etc. So it's actually fascinating the kind of opportunity that exists. So there are many of them. And we have been privileged to work with many of these large SMEs in terms of helping their growth journey. So what is the opportunity here? We can see sellers and brands are selling on multiple marketplaces and being able to utilize the 3PLs to do the fulfillment. And just some stats there, which will again set the context. The big marketplaces still seem to be setting up they're doing 60% of the e-commerce fulfillment through their own captives. But we see that 30% of the fulfillment in e-commerce is happening in India through special purpose vehicles, which are e-commerce specific third-party logistics companies. Now these are companies like eCom Express, Delivery, DTDC, etc. Right? And so there's a interesting opportunity there. And I would pause for a second before going further. Do you see that trend continuing into Alok, in terms of the percentage of revenues being serviced by the third-party logistics companies in India?
I think it will go up because e-commerce market has to understand their main bread and butter is selling, not maintaining logistics. So previously, every company was focusing to maintain logistic arm. Also, Flipkart started, Amazon started, Snapdeal started. Now consolidation was happening. So most recently, the 2 days back news is now one main logistic player is about to acquire Snapdeal some Vulcan Express. So this is a fine example where we are heading. So markets need to understand that there would be logistic player who will be maintaining all logistic activities, and e-commerce has to concentrate on e-commerce. So this is my point of view that yes, we have a lot more opportunity. In fact, opportunities are now coming because now major markets like China, US, Australia, or Europe, they are concentrating on India. And more brands will come, more products will come, and they will use more of core logistic players whose reach is definitely more than e-commerce logistics.
And when we look at that, right, means today, when there are some stats which say the average order size of in e-commerce in India is about something like $20 per order, and we are looking at the cost of doing logistics or fulfilling the order is approximately 10% in India, about $2.
Yes.
Atul, the worldwide number for this, let's say take China, I think it's more than 3 times the size, the order size, about $60 is what the average order size in China. But costs seem to be similar.
Costs are actually lower. So
Okay.
when you look at China, because of the volumes and scale they've achieved, so the costs have come below a US dollar. So the average price today is around the 60 cents mark to get a package delivered across all of
So
China.
that's the extent to which it's going. Maybe the average numbers are still possibly higher than that, but I think the size is 3 times. So that itself makes the percentage cost much lower.
Yes.
The global number is approximately 7% of the order size, 6 to 7%. So how do we get the costs and logistics to come down in India? And what do you see as the problem statements here? And I'm going into a topic possibly.
No, the problem statement is the main statement is India does not have that kind of infrastructure.
Okay.
And everything consumes price, money. Because whenever you want to reach the next end, you have to have manpower, vehicle, everything. So you have to consume some money. And then everybody wants to have timely shipment, beautifully packed, nicely packed, but they want to pay the lesser amount of money. That is a pain point. So by taking the lesser amount, we should also see that what are the various factors which is favoring the market.
Okay, now I think also one of the issues we face in India is addresses are not standardized.
Yes,
People, when the delivery boys struggle to find the right address and waste a lot of time finding
In
that.
fact, every
Is
day,
that something you see? DTDC?
I am from a logistic company, so every day when my delivery boy is going out, by keeping in mind 35 to 40 shipments in a day, he has to deliver. But generally, he delivers 27, 25, 28. Some of the reasons are okay, customer is not available at home, but some of the reasons are we are not able to find the right address. And these problems are majorly in the towns and
and as the e-commerce spreads into smaller and smaller towns, this problem can become bigger.
Definitely a problem.
And any suggestions or thoughts in terms of how, what, or is it an opportunity for young entrepreneurs to come in to solve this problem?
Based on my hope, I would say only technology can help. Like a company called Vinculum, they have to integrate all data. What that company is also giving, that Truecaller. Truecaller used to store every address, and then they are helping logistic companies a lot. But still, we are dependent on local people. So we have to have somebody so that we can ask him, okay, this person is living there, so he has to guide us, and then what it is.
Well, so that presents us the first challenge, but that doesn't stop brands and sellers to happily go and sell on marketplaces. Marketplaces and logistics companies and other VCs are trying to solve the problem. So brands have an opportunity to go and sell on multiple marketplaces.
Can I just add something here?
Please, shoot.
Yeah. When Alok says that they struggle to deliver past 30, let's say 27 or 30. In Europe, they strive for 60 to 80. Right? So when you can get 60 to 80 deliveries per person in, that's the efficiency, the infrastructure quality. So India has so many challenges.
60 to 80 parcels per person a day?
Correct.
Okay.
Per van drive. So that's vehicle. We're not talking bikes.
Okay.
So the smaller vehicles will deliver more.
Okay.
Right? So that means a per head delivery is higher and the costs are coming down. And that's where you have to see India going. Infrastructure is better, addressing better, which allows more parcels to be delivered, hence bringing the cost down.
And if I'm not wrong, you guys do 300 parcels per person a day.
We calculated that earlier today.
Which is fascinating. And I actually was looking at some of the, and I've read some reports which mention that Amazon possibly does about 60 parcels per person a day. So which means you're actually doing better than that. That's fantastic.
That means we are a very efficient company.
but interesting, that it's just a side topic. Dave, you can chip in because this is related to marketplaces. Now, marketplaces like Alibaba, they have invested in a 3PL. They've created a consortium of 3PLs. Somebody like Amazon has its own logistics firm, and like I said, most of the deliveries are happening through the logistics firm. Now, what do you think, Dave, in terms of a marketplace like Voonik? What are your thoughts between fulfilling in terms of yourself versus using a third-party logistics company? What do you see as the decision points there?
So majorly, what decisions play into like deciding between the say captive or a third-party logistics player is, if you have a captive unit, you will be able to do a lot more in terms of standardizing process of that logistics player as per your own intricacies of your operations and other things. The major portion where third-party logistics plays their role is by providing those kind of opportunities where we can improve the process as per the inherent need of that marketplace organization. Suppose, for example, like in case of Voonik, if I say 70 to 75% of our customer comes from rest of India, and if we want to establish our own captive unit, we have to be will not be able to serve to those 20,000, 25,000 resource locations where we are currently doing. So here the marketplace third-party logistics comes into picture. So the need, there are a lot, the solution for everything is based on tech. If third-party logistics players start using technology to match up with the e-commerce players currently, the need for third-party logistics in the field become much higher. So from current 30% portion, I can see that to be growing much more, because a captive unit will not be able to handle the day-to-day variation in demand which comes in, the number of orders which keeps on varying from marketplace to marketplace, and a unit which is being handled particularly by the marketplace itself will not be able to ramp up that fast or ramp down, scale down the similar numbers. It's not possible. So I can see 3PL being growing into to a much larger extent, but they have to match up with these e-commerce.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. So what Devendra is saying, of course, is that the numbers will go up from 30 to higher than that. So which I think is also in line globally, except Amazon. Amazon, of course, is Amazon, right? So with the rest of the marketplaces globally, we do see that trend, right? Let's go into just a minute in terms of how you're approaching e-commerce fulfillment. If you want to talk a little bit, Alok.
Yeah, so we are approaching e-commerce fulfillment like you are sensing the market needs. Why a seller or a buyer or customer needs fulfillment? Because if one particular person says they're already convenient in using particular fulfillment center, like Amazon sellers are using Amazon fulfillment centers, Flipkarts are using Flipkart one, might be Voonik user can use Voonik fulfillment center, but it does not give freedom and flexibility to the seller. Because today I have to give inventory separately into Amazon, Flipkart, Voonik, X, Y, Z, and every day I go to these channels. So it is not convenient for me.
And so today brands or sellers have no trouble going into multiple channels.
Correct.
So there are nice little tools out there which allows them to publish their.
In fact, the kind of ecosystem is coming up to place them onto various marketplaces. So we are playing a major role. So we are giving them a flexibility that you can keep inventory into our fulfillment center, and you can use the same inventory to sell it off on Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal, X, Y, Z, including Voonik. So this is really amusing for sellers.
Great. And one of the things what marketplaces are doing is to, when you could talk a little bit about Amazon Flex. The bigger sellers, what Amazon is now allowing is to track the inventory that the sellers have in their warehouses.
Correct.
And facilitating this instead of doing it themselves. You don't need to keep the goods in their warehouse. You can do it in terms of track the inventory that the seller has in their warehouse and be able to sell on Amazon and other places. Right. So exactly what you're talking about.
Correct. So there are two phases of the same coin. One phase is that Amazon likes to hold every seller.
Correct.
They like to go into every city, every seller base.
Correct.
So because they have to control the quality, the packaging, the right product, everything. Second hand, they cannot have reach everywhere. Right. And they need time to have the reach. So now they have introduced the Amazon Flex so that they are giving this flexibility to the seller. Okay, you can start, you can handle your warehouse. We will check if your warehouse is completely occupied with certain processes and everything. We can recommend your warehouse as comparable to our facility.
And the important point is Amazon wants to know how much inventory the seller has.
Correct.
And even if he doesn't keep the inventory in the fulfillment centers of Amazon,
right.
Amazon still knows what inventory is there with the seller. So of course, the bigger sellers, they can do this, not for everybody, I guess. And smaller sellers, of course, may not have the warehouses either. Right. So that's where DTDC and other companies step in who can come smaller, medium, or big, for in terms of doing that job.
That's why they need companies like DTDC. So to cater all these sellers on them.
And the interesting thing is, of course, you are integrated to all marketplaces using our product, which is something which facilitates this. But similarly, Paytm is launching a service exactly like Amazon Flex, which we are facilitating Paytm to do this. But the interesting angle there is Paytm is also trying to track the inventory of the bigger sellers, and by using a similar solution. I don't know what Paytm is going to call it, but that's I guess. Maybe I shouldn't talk too much about it. Paytm should, but I think that's an interesting angle. Paytm also, we see that they're going absolutely aggressive, like what Amazon did 4 years back in terms of facilitating sellers, onboarding sellers. And I see this as a beautiful opportunity for sellers and brands. Means just jump on the bandwagon and don't miss out on this opportunity. So yeah, just to look at, like I said, we met sellers who did 500 plus crores in 4 years. Maybe we'll have multiple such sellers and brands who work with Paytm and other marketplaces to do the same in the next 2 years, 3 years, of course. Right? So I think that's the opportunity there. Quite interesting. Just move on to customers itself. Customers also are very comfortable today in India, globally, of course, and India as well. India, everybody shops across mobiles. People shop on marketplaces. People are comfortable researching online, buying from store, all of that, and they expect it. Right. So, of course, I'm not going to touch on too much on retailers today in today's discussion, but retailers also have a similar opportunity. When we're seeing malls convert the tenants, all the items carried by the tenants, they're putting it up into a portal and selling it, and they're facilitating buy online and pick it up from store or deliver it at home kind of thing. Property management companies are doing this. We are seeing retailers go online in terms of properly integrating to marketplaces, collaboratively selling with marketplaces. We are seeing retailers do that. Not just in India, we're seeing this in Southeast Asia, we're seeing this in many pockets. Not in US, but in Asia, clearly that's a trend. So we are seeing retailers sell on marketplaces, malls converting tenants and creating portals and selling. So I think these are all interesting O2O solutions which are coming in. Now, again, I'll jump to you, Devendra, to see what is the perspective of Voonik here in terms of where fashion is headed and what do you see?
So, like when we started looking at our customer needs from like all the Voonik customers, what they were requiring were the differentiator which we can provide to them, the supply which we are introducing to them from different smaller pockets across the country. So this is where we observed initially that currently, if you look at the fashion market, even less than 5% of the total buying is done at the e-commerce side. The whole channel across where people are going and buying the nearest shops, if the same items are available across, if a customer sitting in Gurgaon or in Delhi, if those customers are actually able to get the items from, say, smaller places like Zirakpur or Surat or Tirupur, where the supply is indigenous to that location, if we can get those supply introduced to the customers, that is the scope which is available. So we have seen that these smaller sellers located in very small locations inside the country, which is not even properly reachable, and the location is a problem there. Those places will not be even having the fulfillment centers or bigger warehousing locations where these items can be kept or it can be utilized. Also, we went on like what it takes to go online for sellers. It's mainly like the locations which are holding inventory, whether the time which is taken currently to ship to customers, whether it's in control, like if a customer wants an item in 2 days, 3 days, whether the sellers located in a place like Surat or Zirakpur or Tirupur, whether these sellers can provide the same items within the same durations, maybe a plus minus 1 days will be fine, but whether they can provide that. So what are the current challenges being faced by those sellers? So they are mainly like their order processing is unique to each e-commerce company. Sellers has to be aware about how the processes, how those invoices are getting printed. Similarly, there is a delay in shipping because now sellers are directly shipping from their places. They will take say 1 day, 2 days time in shipping those items from their place. Then the courier companies will do. So to solve all those problems, we thought of some of the approaches which could be possible. Like this is all opportunity areas maybe which is available for all the marketplaces in 3PL logistics as well as technology players who can come and play their role into this. So this is in like can be a discussion in our between our panels also, like how these sellers can go offline to online, and the transition should be very easy, or if they can want to use the multi-channel where they can do it. So we introduced this small warehouse concept where outsourced party can provide these small warehouses space. Sellers can utilize those spaces in any of the locations across the country. So suppose a small 2K, 3K square feet space, it can be utilized to provide the inventory spaces to the sellers across the country. They can keep their inventory, they can keep faster shipping, they can be sure about the supply plan, and moreover, whenever the introduction of technology can assist them into keeping those items in such a way that even the faster movements as well as inventory turns would be much faster for these sellers. So this is the plan which is actually which we can introduce as a model, that smaller warehousing locations substituting or maybe assisting the bigger fulfillment centers and warehouses located across maybe big cities, and these small locations will be much nearer to the customers and can help in shipping faster.
So what you're suggesting is that instead of large fulfillment centers, we should have many small fulfillment centers which are closer to the customer. Is that correct then?
Yeah, I'm like there should be an ecosystem where like places like Mumbai and Delhi, a bigger facility would help, but the smaller towns and locations which cannot have that kind of facility, introduction of these smaller fulfillment centers across those cities will help.
Okay, and that's where I guess the model of collaborating with multiple 3PLs comes into the picture. So if you're really addressing, I mean, you can't possibly go and create small warehouses everywhere. You piggyback on existing warehouses.
There are two things, Venkat, I would like to tell you. Whenever you discuss with any marketplace, so whatever Devendra said, I'm completely sympathetic. Because they need a smaller fulfillment center fit into specialized areas where sellers are concentrated.
Correct.
Whenever
or customers are concentrated.
Customers are concentrated. But secondly, and more importantly, if you are talking to the brand, so they are focusing on big warehouses rather than smaller ones. And this is what we are seeing after GST consolidations of warehouses. Because rather than keeping inventory to 20 places, they want to keep inventory to 4 places. But positioning of these 4 places is very important. So yes, marketplace, small warehouses are working for brands because they have to manage their complete B2B. So fulfillment B2B has to be happened only through big warehouses.
Okay. And that's an interesting point that you bring. So how do you see the impact of GST? One of the complexity is gone for one. So but it's still settling in.
So as a logistic provider, I'm happy. If Voonik is saying I want smaller warehouses, I'm completely okay. We'll put Vinculum everywhere. We'll start. If you're talking to brands, big warehouses with more OPEX, more CAPEX, more mileage.
So but I think it has simplified the process for sure. It is good. But I mean, the jury is not out on every aspect, I guess. It will take 4 or 5 months to settle down. And particularly, sellers are still figuring out. And some products which were supposed to be much cheaper have become more expensive now.
Yes.
So people are figuring out how to handle that. In fact, one of our customers literally is planning to move his manufacturing facility from India because he says it's not viable for me to do it anymore here. So these are things which are there, and then it's a real story. So he was contemplating looking at Vietnam as a possible place to manufacture.
So I think another thing you have to look at is whilst there is a need for multiple warehouses everywhere and smaller warehouses, the challenge comes on how much SKUs are holding this, right? So if you look at the Amazon example where they said we'll deliver within 2 hours, that's when they started the test program, it was on 20,000 SKUs. There's no way you could hold the whole range in local warehousing. So I think the hot selling items may go to the smaller warehouses, whereas you still have to have central distribution centers.
No, that's exactly what Dave also is saying. We need to identify, we have to get the assortment right, we've got to figure out which products are selling right, and then house these smaller warehouses with the right products so that you're closer to the customer and you're able to give a better experience to the customer in terms of faster timelines.
And you'd have data and
I guess it becomes interesting as more data points emerge, and then the next step would be how do you use analytics to bring out the. I still think even the bigger locations, even established markets, I know there are a lot of interesting projects going on to get the assortment right. It's almost like a second win. People are forced to look at multi-channel assortment, right? Because historically, even the big players, and big players I'm talking about Walmart's included, they basically had warehouses at strategic locations. But now they are forced to rethink which products to keep in each of these warehouses, which is closer to the buying pattern of the customers. So I think that those are things which will obviously come. Okay, let's go to the, I think domestically, are we in agreement that it is a no-brainer that we need to be selling on marketplaces, whether you are a retailer or whether you are a brand, whether you are a seller? So it's a clear, the jury is consistent, I would say, right?
If you want to expand, you have to be online.
Yeah, be online and be also sell on marketplaces. Yeah. Sell on multiple channels. So one of the questions before we go cross-border, when there's always the fear of retailers, particularly the more expensive products, how do I manage my customer experience versus selling on multiple channels? Do you have a view on that? I do, but any thoughts? Devendra, do you want to answer that? Means I'm asking about how do brands ensure their brand promise is consistently maintained when they sell on marketplaces? Are all marketplaces the same? That's a leading question for you. But nevertheless, should they be worried about selling on marketplaces, or how do they ensure they can get the brand promise which their brand gives to the customers?
So again, I think the answer lies in the tech. The more better tech and consistency across the platforms we can introduce, all those brands need not be worried about like selling online. The more enabling tools that we create, whether it's like e-commerce player, they themselves working on those platforms, tools, options which is available for these players, or maybe a third party being introduced who can work on. And those tools be customized, like we should be able to customize those tools as per the inherent needs also. So all e-commerce will not be the same. There will be a difference according to the customers as well as according to the goals and targets that they are having across achieving those. Like faster deliveries can be one, or it can be say consistency across the promises being made. So all those can be put together in a tech platform. It can be created which can enable these sellers or brands to sell online, and then customers will not be finding any difficulty in getting those on their doorstep also.
So essentially what you are saying is that brands have to work with, when they have to do their own stuff and engaging with the customer, making sure that they are loyal to the brand, but whether it is working digitally, socially, etc. And identify the strategic marketplaces they want to collaborate with. And some marketplaces, like I know Voonik spends a lot of time to make brands successful. So I think identify the right partners to be able to go online and sell online. And that's possibly what you're saying, correct?
Yeah. Yes, Venkat, yes.
Okay, so let's jump into cross-border. I think the jury is consistent that every SME brand and retailer should be selling on channels, and the more exclusive brand it is, they still don't have to worry. It only means that they have to work more collaboratively with marketplaces to make sure the experience is consistent, but they should be pursuing the channels too. Okay, then we go into cross-border e-commerce. Now, let's spend a minute again on numbers, right? We are talking of some crazy numbers. We're talking of Southeast Asia alone expected to go to $34.5 billion, right? This is just Southeast Asia, which in my view is still a very small portion of the e-commerce market in terms of cross-border, right? which is interesting, right? I'm not touching China. It's just Southeast Asia. And China, well, again, a lot of crazy numbers out there. Chinese consumers buy 4 trillion of products manufactured outside China, so whichever channel it is. Okay, that's the kind of number they buy of products manufactured outside China. And think about how much Chinese products are sold outside. And these are, again, we're not talking about billions here, we're talking in trillions. Now, when we look at these kind of numbers, where there is a fascinating opportunity for cross-border to grow on similar lines in other big markets. And I see India is a huge market. There are so many brands, so many manufacturers, and there is a genuine opportunity for outside international brands to come to India and for Indian brands to succeed globally. So there's a fascinating opportunity. I mean, I think the role definition that Vinculum and I as a person has gone through a change looking at the opportunity here. We are saying we will get 10,000 brands to go global. I mean, that's become a personal mission statement for myself. And that's really the reason for that is the kind of opportunity out there. Now, of course, what that means, Atul, I'll step into you for a second. Life is not honky-dory, is it? When you started 9 years back in China, did people know how to do cross-border sales? I mean, I think half the time you were forced to possibly sell the gospel in terms of teaching them how to do cross-border sales. So I would like to hear a bit of that. Yeah.
So that is exactly how it happened. So cross-border did not just happen. It needed a lot of education. The sellers were not sure how to do it. Would it work? Is it going to work? How do we do it? How do we go to customs? How are we going to update these requirements in, let's say, Europe? You know, there are many compliances issues. So how will we do this? So
and people don't know how much duties are there.
Duties, taxes.
Whether it will be this, who will take care of the duties?
Absolutely.
Do I need to register a company or somebody will do it for me? Yeah. Do I ship from India? Do I keep items in the target location? What happens when there are returns? Correct. And there are thousands of questions on your head, right? How do you do it? What do you do?
So again,
what did you do?
If I share my story with you, if I go back to 2009, we started holding conferences and seminars for sellers who were domestic Chinese sellers. And these conferences and seminars were held purely to educate the sellers on the opportunities, exactly what we're talking today. So I see India at 2009 China, to be honest, because cross-border has not really started. It's just about to begin. And whatever little activity you're seeing just now is just the beginning, which was the beginning China.
It's noise.
Right? And
is that a fair statement?
It's beginning to take traction. Yeah. So when Alok talks about multiple warehouses, he's spot on in what he's saying. You need to have a 3PL where the choice of which marketplaces to sell on exists. So this is what we did in the UK from a European perspective. So in 2009, when the requirements were brought to me from the largest e-commerce player in China today, the requirement was we would like to have some stock in a warehouse, and we want 15 square meters, so 150 square foot.
15 square meters.
15 square meters.
Because the people were worried about
Nobody knew whether this would work or not. And we said we have a warehouse, we'll allocate 150 square foot, no problem. Let's start this business. Now, if I just fast forward 8 years, today amongst the Chinese companies that we know and the leading companies, I would assume and predict that for cross-border purposes alone, there's over 1.5 million square foot utilized just in the UK from a cross-border perspective.
1.5 million square foot. Okay.
So if anybody's planning cross-border from India, if you don't plan 1 million square foot, don't start, because this is where it's all going. So everybody listening out there, from a selling perspective, you have to start looking at cross-border, whether it is Europe, whether it's Southeast Asia, it doesn't matter where. The opportunity is there and it's real.
And realistically, there are platforms out there which automate all this process. So you don't have to worry about how the products will reach the customer. Absolutely. You've got to obviously identify which products will sell in which market.
So there'll be a lot of trial and error as well, right? So there's no set formula that says that it's going to be successful. Different markets in different parts of the world will react differently to different products. So now to trial and errors. When you're in a trial and error phase, you always look at holding inventory in your home market. Hold your inventory at home, do some trials cross-border, see what sells, and accumulate your own data. Once you have your own data, you know what SKUs are actually desirable in which markets. And I think phase 2 of your planning should be, now let's look at taking stock closer to the market to get it faster to the consumer, because at that point the trials and errors you've gone through. You have more data relevant to specific markets. So
one of the things which we've been telling our customers is set aside the money you're prepared to lose. That's the cost of learning. It could be 5 lakh rupees, it could be 2 lakh rupees, it could be 10 lakh rupees. Just take maybe your top 20 SKUs, take your top 25 SKUs, take 10 or 20 quantities of this. And let's then say, we've got a platform integrated to so many marketplaces, literally globally. So we said, let's cherry pick and choose. Do you want to go to Thailand? Do you want to go to Indonesia? Do you want to go to Vietnam? Do you want to go to Dubai? Let's pick where your products can sell. And then let's say, are the sizes okay? Are the colors okay? Can we then identify where do we go? And keep these 25 SKUs. Of course, some of the debates there are, shall we move this and keep it in a logistics company in the target location? Or shall we just ship from the source that is India and treat it as cost of learning? Because obviously it is very expensive to ship it from India from day one. But then the pilot is obviously a very contained pilot, right? So what do you think? So, you have some views on that.
So fortunately, Venkat, we are talking today with OneWorld, who's gone through this for 9 years. So we made lots of mistakes in the past. And we've made mistakes because we didn't know what to do. So fortunately, we can share those experiences with the sellers today. And by sharing those experiences with sellers in India today, hopefully we can help them mitigate some of the losses which potentially come in the beginning. So if we can take advantage of those situations, and if we take it from a European perspective, we will hold your hand across the whole process, whether it's from India or from Europe. We'll show you how it's done, guide you through customs. The 3PL part, we'll take your stock in when you're ready. We would guide you when we feel it's appropriate that you need to put your stocks in a foreign location. And the beauty again is we have all the logistical solutions ex-India. That means you don't have to worry about What's my cost? Is going to be too high. So one of the problems that sellers face today when they go cross-border, assuming somebody wants to start selling in Germany, and they don't know anything, so they would not be able to access a rate for delivery which is interesting enough for them to be successful. So OneWorld becomes like your hotels.com or bookings.com when you're looking for a hotel. When it comes to B2C delivery solutions, it's your one-stop shop into Europe, and you would access the right cost of delivery from day one, irrespective of your size. So if we can give that advantage to the sellers in conjunction with our collaboration, Venkat, I think the sellers who can go cross-border in this situation have a fast-track growth.
And that's right, because we are on one side facilitating the sales on all the marketplaces, all the leading countries anyway. And secondly, using some of the OneWorld, we are able to get a cost-effective shipment cost and being able to handle the customs, handle the full track and trace facility. Of course, someone like DTDC can help us in all the domestic delivery till the point of shipment into cross-border. Of course, there could be pockets where DTDC takes over cross-border. So we'll talk. I mean, it's interesting because as the markets emerge, as the industry evolves, but we see this as a fascinating opportunity for facilitating sellers and brands to go cross-border. I know, Atul, you can take care of 28 countries in Europe, and that's a big market, but I'm saying global. Every country where people want to go, there's an opportunity to go.
So today we are speaking of the 28. Of course, we do other markets of the world. But one thing that's important here is in a cross-border environment, you've got to have choice of delivery.
Sure.
Today, there's no one glove fits all. So there's no that single glove.
Correct.
Different sellers have different basket values. Different sellers have different needs. Different brands would have different transit requirements. So there are multiple requirements which brands have, either sellers or a trader, and that is to meet the expectation of the receivers today. So today you have to meet what the consumers expecting, balance it off with the seller's requirement. So when you come to a platform like OneWorld, you get multiple postal channels. So you would get your untracked solutions, you would get your registered post solutions, you would get hyper-local in-country access solutions, and you would also get your integrated solutions.
What we're doing is a similar thing where we're collaborating on R&D here. So we're integrating into logistics companies in many countries, which Atul is able to pull. So it's not just the channels, but also the logistics companies. So let's say, because we have a warehousing solution for e-commerce, which DTDC uses. Similarly, there's a Trans-Korean Logistics who uses it in Thailand. A JNE who uses it in Indonesia. He doesn't need to spend time to integrate, they pull it in. And they'll plug it into DTDC. So that's the kind of model we are looking at, how to collaborate and make sure that there are partnerships everywhere, facilitating this whole cross-border thing.
It's a cross-border ecosystem.
Cross-border ecosystem. Actually, that's what we're working towards. We're trying to create the ecosystem where anywhere a seller or a brand wants to go, we have an inexpensive way in which we can do this. And we can register in marketplaces through Vinculum or through the logistics partner in every country. So which is essentially where we are headed. So which means people don't need to worry about registration, doing KYC, doing onboarding services. We are building the ecosystem in every country. So which is where we are headed. But the thing is not about what we are doing, but what we are trying to facilitate. When brands today don't need to worry about how do I go about doing this. Right, of course, we're learning too, but it is just that phase where I think India has the opportunity to leapfrog. In terms of, Atul, what you said in 9 years, there's no reason why India can't do it in 4 years.
So if China did it in 9, that's because they didn't have the advantage of the knowledge that's there today, right? So if India takes that,
correct,
I think India can get there in about 5 years.
And that's the real thing, right? We can educate the market, we need to educate the market, and we need to create SOPs for each country.
And I keep saying, listen, look how the Chinese did it, right? The Chinese talked about sharing of knowledge, right? So I think in India, we have to get past that where sharing of knowledge is not seen. When you look at sharing of knowledge, you would say, what if he learns more and goes ahead of me? It's not about teaching somebody so that they beat you. It's about, I think, let's teach and educate the sellers so that if you can arm them with knowledge and the path, irrespective whether they work with OneWorld or DTDC, it should not matter. It's about
we're part of the same
absolutely
ecosystem. Yeah.
So pass the knowledge and share it with the sellers to educate them of the opportunities, and I think that's the key there. And the next step should be conferences and seminars in India, which invite sellers to come out to and share case studies, practically, and show them how to.
I'm still obviously talking about Indian brands going outside, but I think there's a fascinating opportunity for outside brands coming into India. And there again, all these brands, we have an interesting opportunity as a company because we are working with brands and sellers in different markets. All of them, India is one of the target markets, and we have fantastic partners here who can make that happen.
Yeah.
So which is again a very interesting space to be in.
So I would like to make one line on your statement. So when getting cross-border, it is very important to get the right partner rather than the cheapest partner.
Correct.
That time price will not help you because it is very important how you are getting managed and who will manage you.
Both coexist, sir. When if you don't manage, you can't do well. If you don't have the right price, you can't sell. So I guess both are very critical. Brand sells into a market depends on the partners that you have. And we are also looking at how do we create strategic marketplace partners and logistics partners in every country. Essentially with that in mind. So to be able to help companies to co-sell into different target geographies. Let's quickly go through some of the stuff here in terms of how we see as a process. Then there's some experiences which DTDC can share, and I just want you to spend 2 minutes after that, Atul, in terms of how you saw the Chinese sellers go into different markets, which I think will be interesting as a case study for our audience.
Yeah, so just I would like to speak on the slides here. The main problem in getting cross-border shipment is to get the selection of international players, then custom clearance player, and domestic player, and then various other things. And the reconciliation also is very cumbersome. So we DTDC are setting up this beautiful process that we can do a custom international connect, and then if we are bringing your inventory to India, we will do the custom clearance. Then from bonded warehouse to our FC, and then we are doing complete inventory management, orders management, your packaging related to your various marketplaces, then returns management, and then reconciliation. So that is the model we are pushing hard.
Okay, cool. And then there's a busy slide. I won't ask you to go into the whole process, but we'll send it to the audience. Yeah, we'll send it to the audience so that they can see it. But it's quite interesting. The process itself is nice. I think people would like to read what.
I would request audience to read it completely so that they can understand fully.
And LBC I'm not touching here, but LBC quickly in a nutshell, right? It's a method. For example, if when we work with LBC as a company consolidates requirements of the Philippine buyers. Let's say people who want to buy in Amazon, instead of getting shipping from Amazon by one parcel, they have a shipping location where they consolidate the requirements and send it through sea kind of thing, through a container, which is much cheaper. So there are interesting models like this which will come in every country. So all of them will also be, our objective is to make them part of the ecosystem so that sellers can benefit, right? So then the whole objective is that we are looking at how do we make life easy for buyers and sellers so that they can benefit in terms of the whole process. Let's talk about the Chinese seller story, Atul. I think we are hard on time, but this is still very interesting for the audience. We'll quickly cover this and then we can
go to the next slide. So that next slide will also. Sure. So again, very similar to what Alok was speaking about, most of us would have similar processes. The process is simple. A seller sells in China. Sitting in China is selling across Europe. There are two models. One is sell and ship from China into the EU. So they're selling across different marketplaces, their own .com website, other channels. Once they've sold out of China, the order goes into the warehouse management system. And at that point in time, they're printing a label, which is the final mile label in the country they have sold to. Assuming they've sold in Romania, they would print a local Romanian courier's label in China when they're ready. That triggers
put it on the parcel.
Put it on the parcel, and that also triggers a notification to the Romanian buyer that your item will be delivered by DTDC, for example. It's a local company they can relate to. So there's comfort and trust that comes in straight away in a cross-border environment. That triggers a collection to us at OneWorld in China. We collect these parcels, bring it into our sorting center, we pick, pack it, we make sure it's all sorted in line with what we require, into Hong Kong, and we fly it out to the UK. The UK is used as a single entry point at this point in time because once you clear customs at the first entry point into Europe, the goods now become free circulation. That means you've dealt with all customs formality for the 28 countries.
That doesn't change with Brexit?
Brexit, if it changes, we are already set up in Germany and we have access into Poland.
Okay.
So from a Brexit perspective as well, we will split the volumes into the UK and into mainland Europe, and we can still manage the process which I'm talking to you about.
I understand this, yeah, obviously these changes come, but we are to be prepared for that.
We are already prepared as a company for that.
Okay.
So what's important when you do cross-border is how the documentation and the manufacturing process is done. Because customs have a certain format in which they would like to see this. Once cleared, distributed across Europe.
And you can track and trace the whole process till it reaches the end customer. And when India sees a lot of returns, 20 to 25% of returns. And what is the experience there? In Europe is, or what's the percentages we look at?
Right. So if you look from a domestic perspective, I think Germany is the highest returns market.
Germany.
Germany.
Okay. That's interesting.
However, from a cross-border perspective, and when it comes to China, the returns rate is quite low in terms of percentage. And the returns that come in predominantly come from a person who's not received the parcel or has moved on. So we are seeing less returns, and again, returns because of the complicated nature of it. You could be shipping to a high duty market, and duties are.
And there is a direct correlation in India between cash on delivery and returns. And there's a lot of, and of course, thanks to what happened a few months back, right? through the demonetization, I think some of the cash on delivery percentages have come down. But I think that there is a correlation in terms of returns and cash on delivery. Then again, your experience in terms of Europe, cash on delivery is a big, and cross-border possibly it's almost zero.
So on a cross-border perspective, the COD part is hardly existent across Europe. I mean, it's all prepaid. So from a domestic, in certain Eastern European countries, yes, COD is still a requirement, but that's more of a domestic play rather than a cross-border play.
Okay. And so essentially what you're saying is returns are low, which means it's easy to manage. And for brands, if I were to then, for let's say I'm an Indian brand, I want to take the step of trying to sell into European Union or UK or one of the countries. All I have to do is to maybe trial out, see which SKUs are selling, then move the selling SKUs into a logistics facility in UK, keep the products there, use the channels that we have to sell on multiple marketplaces, and slowly grow from there, and then move possibly the entire set, which is potentially capable of selling. So you don't see the risk of returns as a problem there, as long as you take the initial risk of the cost of that pack of or lot of items, you're good to go.
So your returns are there if your product is faulty or damaged, right?
I understand.
So
I mean, there will always be a small percent, and not like 20%, but maybe a 5%.
What you also notice is in a cross-border environment when people have shop cross-border, because there's been duties and VAT involved, there's already a significant cost which is not reclaimable on a return. So if a wrong size came in, for example, they'll normally pass it on to a relative, a friend, or you'd see these items coming back onto a marketplace being sold off. So that is how
I think we don't have the time for it, but that's also an interesting business model here. When the returns are being sold on marketplaces here. So that's the opportunity, of course. We'll rush through this. We've got a lot of slides which we can talk, but Indian sellers can do the same. Can reach the, globally they can sell. That's what we see as the opportunity. 2 minutes on the challenges. Of course, one is listing products into marketplaces. A lot of marketplaces don't have APIs still. So Vinculum as a company, we are working with brands to, when we are working, for example, with many watch brands like Armani Exchange and Fossil, etc. We are automating the listing process into marketplaces right from Japan to New Zealand, and for them. But in general, as a listing process, we are looking at every marketplace that we are integrated with, about 30 plus today, But I think next webinar or the next time we talk, it will be 50 plus. But we are looking at automating. Then it's a continuous R&D exercise. We're trying to automate listing for all categories, right? So one by one, maybe over the next 6 to 12 months, we would have automated the listing process to all the marketplaces. So which is the journey we are in. But what the thought process is, you have one picture, you have a description there, you should be able to populate the marketplaces. That's the thought process. So that it makes it easy to sell. Then we partner with DTDC, partner with OneWorld, be able to go and publish it into fulfill it in each market on a cross-border model. That's the thought process, right? So listing is one, and integration into marketplaces and channels is one. I think onboarding process still is key, and managing the shipping costs and having a reliable partner in each market is very critical. So I think those are some of the takeaways. Do you think we should, do you have anything else to add here? Devendra, I know we have not been talking too much to you, though we made sure that you were able to talk the earlier part. Do you want to add something there? How do you see the opportunity for Voonik? Yes, so very interesting brands you could potentially take overseas as well.
Yeah, so we are like, because Voonik has always in for providing the best of the supplies, which is not even available nearby to customers, maybe providing them those supplies, as well as also we want to reach out to as maximum as customers possible. So in both the scenarios, I think that going global will help. So looking at the regulatory and other norms which allows us to do that, we will be for sure looking forward to any opportunities where we can sell to as much customers as possible, as well as maybe giving most of the supplies to all the customers who are buying on Voonik.
Awesome. So we will stop with that. I think we've made the case, hopefully, for all the audience who are there, that the opportunity is yours to grab. So go global, succeed globally. We are here to help you do it. I'll pause for questions now.
Thank you so much, Venkat, for that lovely discussion. Thank you, panelists. It was very comprehensive, very insightful. So much so that we've got questions coming thick and fast. So let's quickly take a couple of questions. The first one is the gentleman wants to know, how does the e-commerce fulfillment provider handle customer issues like product complaints, product returns, and other issues which can impact the reputation of the product brand as well as the e-commerce service provider? Would you like? Okay.
So before I answer that, I think first of all, it depends on how the brand has positioned themselves. Are they asking the 3PL to look after the customer service piece or not? Right. So if the brand is asked the 3PL to look after the customer service piece, there will be set guidelines on what is acceptable and how to deal with those. So a 3PL, depending on their own capabilities, is in a position to take care of all customer service inquiries and deal with in the manner the brand needs it. So from a European perspective, if OneWorld was engaged and we had certain guidelines on how the brand wishes to look after their customers, that will be done. And that could be their first level of customer service, which can be escalated back to their customer service in case of escalation.
Sure. I would like to add on, we have to understand why returns are coming. Returns are because if we have delivered wrong product, right product in a wrong state, or right product in a bad packaging, so that feel-good factor is not there, customer is returning back. So what we are doing inside a fulfillment center, whenever we are storing any inventory, we are doing thorough quality check, so that it minimizes the errors of having a bad product or wrong product. Then whenever we are delivering the order, we are doing the right packaging. Again, we are doing the small quality check, so to ensure the right product is being picked and packed, and then we are shipping. So it reduces the returns, I would say, from 20 to 25% to 15 to 16%. And that is what we are seeing inside DTDC's warehouses. And at the time of return management, whenever we are receiving any shipment from any customer that are purely returns, we are respecting whole product under the camera, so that we are recording everything, so that, you know, when as a seller I need to reconcile with the marketplace, so to have my proper money, I can do it. Because DTDC is providing whole image and then the right content and the right state of the product at the time of receiving.
And do you, side question, the reconciliations, do you see that as a pain point for e-commerce sellers?
Of course. Where reconciliation is the major pain point, because see, you are getting the only money which is only allowed and approved by the marketplace with their reasons only. So if you have the right state of the product at the time of receiving, you can do reconciliation in a better.
Sure. So we have another interesting question. The gentleman wants to know, what is the carrying cost for reverse logistics? So the returns, basically.
Carrying costs.
Yeah.
So tough to say what is the carrying cost. Yeah, but
generally it is 1.5 times of the forward shipping.
1.5.
So 1.5 times in India, I would say.
Right.
Outside India, I don't know.
European
European
perspective,
perspective, same cost as delivery. There's no difference in the return. So India definitely it is more expensive.
No, but there is a confusion. When you say returns, a normal return is the same delivery cost. When you say reverse logistics, this product is being opened, then we are going especially to pick the.
So you have to pack it and bring it back.
Right.
So, or you have to decide where to put it. You junk it, bring it to the warehouse, send it to the manufacturer. What do you do? So those are
from a cross-border perspective. If either the buyer is going to hand it over to a post office, for example, in a European perspective, or it's going to get collected. So whether it's collected or it's dropped off at a drop-off location, the costs are parallel to a delivery cost.
It's
Same as in India.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I think the volumes are high here, and I guess that's where it gets tricky.
It's good for us.
But not good for the industry, sir. But we would still like it to be direct.
No, we need to also understand one thing: why returns are higher in India. Because e-commerce is still new in India.
I agree with that. It will stabilize.
So one part to know
a space which sells heavily online, and different markets have different nuances. There again, I guess it's not the right.
So from a cross-border perspective, perfumes are hazardous items, right? So you cannot be flying hazardous items at the cost that you can do normal deliveries. So perfumes in particular would be a question mark, because you have to get it to a certain point and use only ground transportation.
And you will have, it will be more expensive to do it. But of
on
course,
a non-air situation, the cost can come down, but your initial leg has to be there, which is an expensive leg.
I'm saying it's expensive, but people buy it. I'm saying people love to buy specific perfumes, brands, of course. You don't mind paying market for it.
It is absolutely correct. We look after a couple of people who sell perfumes online in the UK because of the ground-only delivery. And we've seen their business grow by average 25 to 30% per annum. So they're doing extremely well.
Sure. So going on to the next question, with all the major FMCG brands being serviced by the e-commerce fulfillment provider, what are the ways in which individual brands can differentiate themselves in terms of service?
See, in terms of service, I would say number one point is if X brand wants to deliver their product in say, let's say 6 to 8 hours. If somebody wants to deliver us in 4 hours, third brands, they are highly conscious and they say, okay, within every 2 hours you need to pick, pack and process, because in the same city we need to dispatch it within the same day. So it depends on the model. Second is the differentiator is packaging. So right kind of packaging, a creative kind of packaging is the main differentiator. And third is the pre-packed products. Because products are pre-packed in a beautiful manner, they will certainly give an added feel-good factor. If products are not being with pre-packed in a good state, then it's different story. So it depends.
And again, go back to the first thing is the market, right? Right. Every market is not the same. When big FMCG brands are not necessarily the only ones which sell. For example, if I take the US market, there are enough pockets there who don't care about brands. They like to buy equivalent products which are much cheaper. So, and if I go into Singapore, for example, Singapore will specifically want brands. So you got to pick which markets you want to sell. There enough opportunity out there. That's where I guess we'll have to do a good strategy into identifying the right markets to sell. But it doesn't matter. And India, for example, there are so many new brands who are boldly going and succeeding. So, and they are not there. Means these companies are all 4 or 5 years old. So how are they competing? They're competing by being more nimble. They're competing by redefining the norms of the industry. Means we have a co-funded company in the lingerie space called Clovia, whose numbers are all very interesting. When the industry norms are all completely thrashed. Their numbers are all much more efficient. So there are ways to do it. So it's you get your product right, you get your strategy right, you identify the market right, you make the experience better, you can take on anybody.
Sure.
The world is yours to conquer, right?
Right.
Going back to the point. So there are more easier ways to sell.
Sure.
And the big boys, remember, had set up infrastructure which was expensive. They've gone the 9 yards in terms of doing it. You got the opportunity to do it much easier.
Sure. Thank you, Venkat. So our next question is for Atul. Atul, Mr. Ranganathan from Blue Saint wants to know. He says he's keen for cross-border e-commerce. What are the various facilities offered by logistic partners and in which countries? What are the requirements from the brand side to qualify for selling cross-border? And are there any companies offering cross-border warehouse setup?
That's what we spoke the whole time.
Right. So OneWorld as a company can help a brand from India, from compliance, registration for a VAT number or EORI number as an importer of record. You need to have a clear importer of record, depending on the line of business they're in, whether it's electronics or waste. So we can guide them on the requirements, the laws of EU. We can also do the warehousing, pick, pack, ship. So first strategy, ship from India. Second strategy, warehousing. Help with returns. Also help them with fiscal representation. So something that sellers must know as they grow and you do business in Europe, you'll have to comply with the 28 countries' laws when it comes to VAT. So as a company, we give guidance on that also to the sellers. So it is a step-by-step process, but we will guide a seller whilst they're doing business across the 28 countries. We're in a position to help and hold their hand.
And adding to that, right? Obviously, you have to identify countries. This opportunity is global. There are partners everywhere, and there are tools out there which can help you sell on marketplaces. So you need to obviously look at registration, KYC, onboarding, etc. Partners can do it. There are partners everywhere. There are logistics players everywhere, and there are companies who can handle the KYC process for you in terms of registering you on a marketplace, representing you there. And of course, you grow and you want to be there yourself, you can still piggyback on these partnerships of marketplaces and logistics players. They can do the entire thing that is possible. Hence, for practical purpose, whatever happens domestically is available to you internationally.
Sure.
And people obviously will handhold you in terms of compliance and regulatory requirements, but the rest of it, so realistically, you have to think of the world as your football ground to play.
So Leo wants to know, why do supplements take 1 month to get delivered from the US to India?
Depends on what products.
So it's a good question. Now, supplements would be restricted coming into India, subject to a lot of customs checking, etc. The way people ship supplements is through the postal channels. And as much as we say that it's not a level playing field, it's actually not a level playing field. Customs clearance for a postal operator is completely different
to
the customs clearance process for a commercial operator like DTDC or OneWorld. So supplements are pushed through the postal channel, and 30 days would be the norm from the US to India because the postal channels are not as efficient as the commercial channels.
I think that's the good point. Yeah.
I'm sure that addresses Noel's question. So I guess this question picks up from where Devendra left. The technology gap between third-party logistic players and e-commerce players need to be bridged. That's what I guess Devendra pointed out. So where is the gap, and how can it be bridged?
I don't see it as a gap. It's more like both are players who are enabling the ecosystem, right? So marketplaces are coming in from one side saying, "I'll help, build the brands and help them sell," and logistics companies are coming from the other end saying, "We'll onboard you, we will provide you a portal, we will help you work with marketplaces." It's just the theory of logistics companies wanting to work with multiple channels and marketplaces wanting to make the experience easier. It will dovetail at some stage.
I would say technology is a base, logistics is a backend, and marketplace is a front.
Correct, but both sides are moving to the other side, so which means there's a continuum there.
Yeah, I think the only gap that you could see is the number of platforms that people use their websites. So maybe those plugins are still under process of development, or there are thousands of marketplaces. So people will focus on the bigger marketplaces first rather than doing the the smaller marketplace. So that gap would be there at the moment. Otherwise, I think it's being bridged quite well.
Okay. See, and going back to the earlier example I said, right, since you have marketplaces themselves. When you look at an Alibaba, they've gone into a consortium of 3PLs to piggyback on. And Amazon does captives. So there are both models out there, right? And Alibaba is hyper efficient. We all know it. So both sides work, and Amazon is the number one globally. So both models are working, and there's no reason. It's not like there's a gap. They will evolve. There will be more technologies which will come in, which make the process better,
right,
to help the brands to succeed.
Okay, sure. So there's a question for Devendra. When can a startup company have their own fulfillment center while having third-party delivery partners? Devendra.
So I'll mainly say that it all depends on the strategy and the way growth line has been going for that startup. It's mainly up to like the kind of model that you want to have. For giving an example, like we still feel that we are a startup and we have been going strong without having any captive units or any kind of fulfillment centers also. Usage of third-party logistics, how it is done, how it is designed, and at what kind of optimum mixture you want to have for those players is all that matters. So finding the right partner for you, maybe then setting up the expectations right from the start, and then meeting up the customers' expectations consistently throughout the mode of operations will help there. So it all depends on who you want to switch over. So there are some positives about having a fulfillment center, or some positives about having your own warehouses. If you want to utilize those, you want to ship faster, maybe you want to do your own quality checks, you would like to go for those options also. So it's all about, like, maybe data helps a lot. You analyze your data, realize these are the points where you will be requiring this kind of strategy. Maybe introducing another third-party logistics for solving that problem, or creating your own setup. Both the things are just part of the opportunity area. You have to decide at the right moment.
Great. Thank you, Devendra. So the next question is for Atul and Alok both. What is the cost involved for 3PL players for not delivering the product on the date of delivery?
I would say, I think he would also be agreed that there cannot be any definite answer for this. It depends on many things. And how we are into the agreement with marketplaces or with one particular seller. So
you have SLAs which you set up with marketplaces, right? And the SLAs will drive it.
Because SLAs also gets changed. See, suppose if any festival is coming. So everybody about we cannot maintain the same SLAs. So it keeps on changing. But yes, 99% we have to adhere what we have promised and what we have.
So the cost of not delivering first time is huge, right? And this is one topic that we are always discussing in Europe. How do you try and get first time delivery on time? So communication with the consumer, real-time location of parcel, these kind of technologies are there. SMSs, ability to redirect a parcel before it gets to the consumer. So again, these technologies are all there. So how do you engage with the receiver prior to the parcel going out to the receiver, and get the receiver to say, I'm not home, or don't deliver, or leave it with my neighbor? Those kind of things are all happening in Europe. So that's addressing the cost, because it's an absolute huge cost for not delivering first time.
Sure. Thank you. So we'll take one final question before we wrap up the session. And I would want a response from each of the panelists, and Venkat from you. A short crisp response, please. So as the field becomes bigger, as the e-commerce market expands, how is the fake products issue tackled?
Difficult, has to be done. More processes will be required going forward for compliance, and everybody in the chain will become responsible for this. So more accountability will come into play.
So I would say now in India, companies are getting more compliance oriented. All top marketplaces, they are checking background of seller, if they're authentic sellers or not. Suppose if any distributor or seller is selling on behalf of any brand, they must be having an authenticated, letter from the company that they are authorized to sell this product. So these compliances are there.
Devendra? your response, your feedback on this, please.
Yeah, so only 2 points there. Like one is technology, another is data. Technology will help you to identify or creating a processes where you will be able to check all those products even through images as well as through direct checking at the centers, QC, doing QC or fulfillment centers. And data will help to identify what kind of products or customer complaints you can analyze. So these 2 things will help you.
What Devendra said, I think you can have blacklists of sellers who default. I think technology will enable both customers who play front and sellers who play front, and that will clean up the process. But like other panelists have said, each part of the ecosystem has to overlook this.
Great. So that's all we have time for. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, participants, for being so patient. And with this, we'll close the webinar. Have a great evening ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.